Excellent. Good morning, Casey. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. What a journey you've been on. And I got to tell you that being part of this growing story and stuff like that reminds me so much of what my preacher would tell me, Pastor Stephen Furtick of Elevation. He would say, it's not anybody's fault but the people before them. Do you believe in that theory?
I believe that, this is something I've experienced over the generations and
Yep.
lived with for the last 62 years. So again, it's finally holding them accountable because when you grow up in a famous, wealthy family that people admire, and my grandfather did a lot of things. You have the museum, you have, the charities, you have all the goodwill he did, in the world. And so if you speak against that, you must be the black sheep. You must be the person that wronged the family. You must be the one that made the mistake. And you kind of live with, again, my grandfather controlled the narrative, so you couldn't do anything to upset him or tarnish the family name.
How does a family embrace its truth? Because we all have things in the closet, and then all of a sudden one day somebody comes knocking.
They don't. They don't
Wow.
talk about it. They
Yeah.
don't. Again, so no social media back when I grew up, so it isn't something that people can go online and see. Like nowadays, you can, instant gratification or certain image. It was all kind of behind closed doors and being camera ready out in the public.
Yep.
And again, if you were a woman in this family, which my mom and I, basically you were ornamental. You had to be a certain way. I mean, my mom would leave the house and her cigarettes were dyed to match her outfits. I mean, that's how crazy it was back then, but it was again all image and not embarrassing the family and just, being a good girl. And that's what thrive, strive to be.
I'll tell you what, the conversations that I have with my sister, she's 58, and what we're talking about today are subjects that, wow, why didn't we talk about it when we were younger? Do you find yourself in that kind of a situation as well, Casey, where it's like, why didn't we talk about this?
Absolutely. I mean, as you see in House of Hammer, I was triggered in my 30s when I was, trying to be an actor shooting a B-roll in a parking lot. They were, fake attacking me in a car. And there was a familiar moment where he had my arms above my head. And it was just like, oh my God, my body just freaked out. And I almost killed the guy, unfortunately, and really started in that moment, just shaking and just it was crazy. And I remember going to my mom and telling her all the things I was remembering and hoping she wouldn't, say that it was true, but she did. And to know that she allowed it to go on and that my father and it was just one of those moments where you had no one to talk to. And that's kind of why I wrote my book, Surviving My Birthright. It was more of a journaling for me, a healing, to try and make sense of what I had been going through, because it was normal to me. It was normal to be shot at by my family. I mean, again, guns were, party favors. It wasn't like any of what you all see in House of Hammer was shocking to me. It was my normal.
Casey, you put shockwaves through me when you talk about that, because I grew up in a household where the guns were in my bedroom and I hated it. I hated it. My dad would just sit there and say, "Stop it. I'll put them wherever I want to." And I feared those guns.
Absolutely. And again, you also saw that my father, murdered someone in cold blood, and my grandfather covered it up and made it, paid someone off, and it became, self-defense. And my mother was like, no, I was standing right there. He just pulled out a gun and shot the
Jeez.
person. So it's like that happened a lot in my family. But again, it was just, and you couldn't talk about it. You couldn't say anything bad about the family, or you were erased or disowned or, physically, it was just, yeah, there was a lot of punishments that were thrown and threats. So I'm just used to being under the spotlight and having everything I do watched. It's just a normal for me.
Were you shocked by the way that people outside the house would react? Because the people would shrug their shoulders and say, "Ah, it's just the Anthonys," and I'd go, "Ah, you don't know." I mean, did they do the same thing to you? Ah, it's just the Hammers. It's the Hammers being the Hammers.
I think they did up until the docuseries. I mean, I got a lot of, again, last year I was, living a very quiet life, working as a kitchen designer at Home Depot in San Diego. And, occasionally people would find out who my family was. And especially Armie being an actor, it brought, the Hammer family back in the spotlight. So, again, it was, well, why are you working here? Don't you have millions, and on. And you just get into a point where you don't want anybody to know, because the story's too long and involved. So by having House of Hammer, it's almost like a testament to my life, and having people come forward to corroborate it. It was kind of like, see, I've been saying this all along. And then having the current victims, have the strength and being so brave to come forward and talk about, their experiences and abuse. It's my normal. It's what I experienced growing up. So I can speak to what I saw as a child into an adult, into this, crazy. Years ago, when my mom passed away, we still got together. We still were a fake family, like Succession. We still, spent the week while she was dying, all of us together, pretending we loved each other. So yeah, it was a different situation.
We've got to give kudos to Discovery Plus for standing behind you guys on House of Hammer, because before Discovery Plus and all these digital platforms came into being, the only thing that we had that would share stories like this, Oprah, we had Phil Donahue, we had Dr. Phil and stuff like that. But you take us so deep into this story, and how your heart is recovering is just mind blowing to me.
Well, it's interesting too, because this was the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we only had 3 hours, and there was so much more about the family that we could go into. And again, it could go on and on and on. And I just, it's crazy, because people are very shocked by what they see in House of Hammer. And to me, it's like, oh, you haven't seen anything yet. There's a whole bunch more that, was crazy. And you kind of have to laugh about it. You kind of have to think, if you reasons or times that I shouldn't be sitting here, that I don't want to be sitting here. So it's kind of like, it's a struggle to know why I'm here. And I think for the first time in my life, by choosing to be a part of this, and, shining the light on victims and being an advocate for them, and talking about consent and accountability, it really helps empower, and it helps me heal also. But it's not an easy journey. Abuse is abuse, and
yep.
You see physical abuse, but mental and emotional, that's deep rooted. Not that physical isn't, but they're all intertwined, and people need to recognize that it's a challenge every day to wake up and take a breath and to keep going. But it's possible to have a fantastic life, and to heal, and to help others. And I think that's kind of, now I finally realized, well, this is my journey.
So when you open yourself up like this, because I'm a daily writer, I understand the healing process, and what you've got to rid the heart, you've got to clear the heart of situations. But when you do that, you've got to replace it with something. What have you replaced that negative energy into? What have you replaced that negative energy?
Basically, I meditate a lot.
Yes.
I do a lot of yoga. I'm around animals. I go to the ocean, and I really have learned to go inside and know that, it starts with me. I mean, there are times where I have a lot of guilt and blame that I couldn't, rescue that little 11-year-old, 12-year-old Casey and keep her safe. And so again, there's a lot of challenges that way with, the healing process. Having relationships as an adult, it's like, all the men that I choose to be with, it's kind of like they're all the Hammer men. So again, it reflects in your everyday, and you just really need to make peace with, it's okay to be not okay. I used to self-medicate up until about 1.5 years ago. I don't anymore. So it's really challenging to sit with these emotions and feelings, and feel that you're going to come out of it. So yeah, it's a process, and you do need help. And I'm here to say too, that there are therapists and people out there that will help you, and don't let money or any of that be a reason that you don't get help, because they'll work with you. And I found out about a sliding scale, as crazy as that sounds, but you're not alone and you can't do it alone. So again, by being present for people and listening to their story and letting them know they're heard, it's just very empowering.
I'm glad you brought up the things about getting help and stuff like that. But let me ask you a question. Now that House of Hammer has been released on Discovery Plus, can you set up a website that helps people? Because the one thing that I'm bumping into, and I keep hearing these stories, is that a lot of these psychologists and psychotherapists, all they want to do is meet on the web. They don't want to meet face to face. But come on, Casey. I mean, you and I both would rather sit in front of people and share the story rather than, hey, I'm on Zoom having a conversation.
Absolutely. And, I made that comment earlier about the radio interviews. It's like, I don't see you.
Yes.
And I really need to connect. I need to be able to look into your eyes, because again, I know what it's like when you talk to people that aren't present. You really need someone to listen to you and with empathy and compassion and just hear your story. So yes, I mean, I hope to take this on the continue sharing. I hope to, who knows, maybe even having a talk show with advocates. Or I don't understand social media that well. So it's like, the podcasts, I'm learning there's other ways to reach people. And I'm more of a one-on-one with people. So if I can find a way to, help people that way and let them share and tell their stories, that's what I'm learning right now. And I don't know, I'm trying to navigate these waters and kind of, I'm looking for people that can help me. And so again, it's one of those things where, I didn't go looking for this, and all of a sudden, a year ago, my life was different than what it is right now. So it's kind of like, okay, I just have to trust that the universe will give me the right people and show me the path that I need to be walking. But yes, it includes helping people.
I think one of the most important questions is that how do you stop what has been taking place for over 60 years? Because, I mean, it's one of those things where, like if your grandfather, let's say, was an alcoholic and now you're an alcoholic, how does it stop? Someone has to be able to put the brakes on, saying, I'm not going that direction. Do you see this House of Hammer on Discovery Plus being the brakes in your family history?
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's like you have to break the cycle. You have to say, I had a problem. I grew up this way. It's not right. It's not, it's not good. And so you just kind of have to stop it. And so, like I said, I had made peace with my life and was living a very quiet existence. So now with House of Hammer, it shines a spotlight in a big way on bad behavior and how, men of power. I mean, to think that, you think you're not accountable, or, again, it's crazy to think that people can still get away with all this. But, again, I've seen it. I know the power of money. I know the power of influence. I know the power that it wields in the Hollywood and just everywhere. And it's hard to break that, but hopefully House of Hammer now shines a light on it and says no more. Because again, you see how scary my grandfather was. And even after he passed, asking people to help me in my place, or just, be there because he was there for them. It's like the door slams on you if you don't have the money or the name or the power anymore. It's like, yeah, it's a very frightening, and it still continues to be that. So you just have to, yeah.
So let me ask you a question. You talk about power. What about the power of the candy-coated plastic bathroom mirror smile? I mean, come on. How many times do you look at yourself in the mirror and put on that smile just because it helps you deal?
Absolutely. And it's all, again, I see what I was trained to see. You were trained to, be camera ready. You were trained to, look the part and say the right things. And as you saw, these parties my grandfather held, it was like for heads of state, it was for royalty, it was for Hollywood. And, they were, again, like almost every month, there were 2,000 of his closest friends, and you got dressed up. And it wasn't like it was, like social media where you could see things happening in real time. It was all like a secret society. And, you wanted to be on that guest list. So yeah, it's interesting because watching House of Hammer, I forget a lot of the parties, because in my 20s and 30s, I was kind of crazy. So I look back and I'm like, wow, I forgot I met them, or I forgot this. And it's fascinating to see how secret that was back then, but that was the life. It was a small group of people.
And isn't it weird that in this modern age with all of this digital technology and internet, is there such a thing as keeping a secret anymore?
No, there really isn't. And that's the good news. I mean, again, it's challenging because, for me to get on social media and to read DMs, I can read these beautiful passages that people are writing me, or stories, or appreciation, and yet then there's one or two that are really awful people and say bad things, and it's like you kind of, it's challenging. It really, really is, because I take it personally. And so I just want people to know that I appreciate their support and I read everything. I just, don't understand the ins and outs of like Instagram and TikTok, or, again, it wasn't my generation, but I see the power of it. And I see that it's a great place to be able to say your piece and kind of get people to notice things. So that's a good thing.
Wow. Well, this platform is always open for you. You can come back to this show anytime you want to, because it's about changing people's lives beyond your circle.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You be brilliant today, okay, Miss Casey?
I will, and you too.